Well, good evening. Good to be with you again, and delighted I am to have the chance of talking to you once more. Last time I spoke about the historical evidence that there was by historians of the day and documents that supported the life of Jesus. I'd like to put some more thoughts on that. You may remember I said that there is no doubt that Jesus lived. The question is, was he who he said he was? And my belief is that he was. But let's look a little closer at the whole situation. For Jesus was working with his dad, Joseph, as a tekton is the Greek word, which means builder. He wasn't just a carpenter. He would have been doing all the various trades that went into building houses. And he did that until he was 30. And the reasons for that was at some point, we're not sure when, Joseph would have died. And therefore the Jewish custom was the firstborn, the eldest boy, would then take over the family business and look after the family, provide for them, and especially for the mother, until such time as he got to the age of 30 and he was relieved of that duty, and the next boy would take that responsibility on. So Jesus started his ministry at the age of 30. And it was a short 3-year ministry in which time he did amazing things. And that's what I want to focus on tonight, really, because it's all very well for me saying, well, there's no doubt Jesus lived and I believe he is who he said he was, but let's look more closely at the things he did to support that claim that I make. You know, Jesus, first of all, was quite a party animal, wasn't he? He went to a reception, to a party, and they ran out of wine. So what did he do? He churned the water into wine. And everyone thought that the hosts had kept the very best wine till the end. In fact, it was the wine that Jesus made. And then again, you know, there was 5,000 on the hillside that he'd been talking to, and they were hungry. So what did he do? He got the loaves and the fishes that the little boy had for his lunch, blessed it, gave it to the disciples to feed the 5,000. Well, without getting into the politics of this, in those days, they would count the men and not the women or the children. So if there were 5,000 men, it's quite probable that there were 3 or 4 or more thousand women, wives, in other words, girlfriends, and then, of course, children on top of that. So you may be talking about a crowd of 15,000, which the disciples must have been absolutely, well, how would it have been if you were there and Jesus gave you a little bit of bread and a bit of a fish and said, right, off you go, guys, feed them? Well, they would have been amazed, because as they were feeding, so the bread and the fish was multiplying. Amazing. No ordinary person could do that. So what else? Well, Jesus walked on water. Amazing. I don't think anyone else has done that. And then he got Peter to get out of the boat, and walk to him. And as long as Peter had his eyes fixed on Jesus, he was fine. But as soon as he started to think about, oh, it's deep here, oh, the waves, look at all this rough weather, oh, I'm going to sink, and he did. So Jesus held out his hand, pulled him up, and got him back into the boat. Don't know anyone else that walks on water, do you? And then Jesus healed the blind man. That was phenomenal, wasn't it? The blind man wanted to be healed, and he called out to Jesus, and Jesus had compassion on him, it says, and healed him. He did the same thing when he was in a house talking to the household, and in fact there were lots of people gathered outside, so much so that the friends of the paralytic couldn't get in to Jesus. So they climbed up onto the roof, because in those days they had flat roofs. They laid timber branches over the roof and put earth and twigs and all sorts of things on top of that to make it waterproof. And so the friends got up onto the roof and lifted the paralytic up there, moved some of the branches, and there was a hole, and they lowered the guy that was paralyzed down to Jesus. I've often wondered what the person would have thought about all that owned the house with a great big hole in the roof. Just as well Jesus was a builder and could do something about it afterwards, wasn't it? So Jesus healed the blind man. He healed the paralytic. He healed a man with a terrible disease called leprosy, which if you had leprosy in those days, you were an outcast. Nobody wanted you near them. They certainly wouldn't want them in the village or the town. And lepers had to go and live in a colony. They were highly infectious and not wanted by anybody. But Jesus didn't shrink back. He didn't in any way not want to go to them and heal them. And of course, you have the amazing story of Lazarus, who had died. He'd been dead for 3 days by the time Jesus reached him. And he healed him. How amazing was that? The woman at the well, he foretold what her troubles had been, all the men that she'd lived and had, and said, go and sin no more. He forgave her. Like the woman who was being stoned for adultery. He said, whoever casts the first stone has to be without sin. Well, there's many more things which I could say, but I hope it gives you some idea of the amazing supernatural powers that Jesus had and used for the benefit of people that were ill, people that had sinned, people that were hungry on the hillside or ran out of wine at the party. Are those the sort of actions that an ordinary person would do? I don't think so. It was undoubtedly, in my mind, the actions of Jesus Christ, the Son of God, that came to earth to show us a better way to live and a way to the Father in prayer by believing in Jesus Christ. I hope that you do. God bless. Have a great week, and I hope to see you soon.